Welcome to Lady Family Live, everybody. Welcome back. Of course, to our members, thank you so much for your support. We appreciate you supporting our family-owned and operated business, and hopefully you're loving what you're seeing come in your shipments, and you're loving the wines. And any feedback you have, please send it our way. I already see Carol there's in the chat, and Dan. Cheers, Dan. Happy you guys are joining us in the chat there. Please use that chat function to throw questions our way, or let us know what you're enjoying tonight, what you've had recently, really anything you want to share about our wines. Some of our team members will be in that chat as well, so they can answer questions if I miss them. But just a couple things before we start going through the wines tonight. I do want to, of course, extend an invitation to visit us. I always do that. I always want to see you guys here. We've got some exceptional tasting experiences and backstage, and we will be reopening the VIP outdoor tasting area, I believe, shortly. In the next couple of weeks, we did a little work there, so that will be coming up. And other things coming up, we have all kinds of events over the coming months. The Rock Block Party is the next one coming in May. And if you're interested in seeing more of the places where we're going to be, whether it's here in Napa or out in the other states, you can check our calendar tab on our website, and it has all the different things we're doing. I myself am going to be out in Charleston at the beginning of March. I'll be in Chicago and then New York, several other places over the coming years. So take a look at that. Also, take a look at the delicious recipe that Chef Lynn from the Poetry Inn put together for this month's shipment. It pairs with the Rhythm Cabernet Sauvignon, really delicious steak recipe. Definitely check that out if you're looking for something fun to try with the Rhythm Cabernet, which I am super excited to talk about tonight. It's been a long time coming with that wine, but that is going to be the wine we're going to get to towards the end. We're going to start things off by chatting about the FEL releases for our FEL members. First off is the new vintage, the 2022 vintage of the Anderson Valley Chardonnay. As always, this wine is more of an elegant, fresh, bright style of Chardonnay. So not your typical oaky, buttery, big, bold, round style. This is lifted, it's vibrant. We achieved that through a few different ways. If you're familiar with the Anderson Valley, this is an appellation that is, we're talking 100 miles northwest of where we are here in Napa. It's cooler climate, closer to the coast. So naturally, you're going to get more acidity in the fruit. It's a great place to grow Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. And this Chardonnay, because of that, shows a lot of that vibrance on the nose. I mean, you're getting like lime and lemon zest and a little bit of pineapple. It'll still get some of that classic, like Granny Smith apple that Chardonnay can be known for. But it's a very bright expression of the varietal. That vibrancy carries through on the palate. You can see I'm like salivating. There's a lot of acidity there, a lot of freshness. We achieve that also through limiting the malolactic fermentation. So we're not converting the malic acid, which is, think of, again, Granny Smith apple, right? Brightness, to lactic acid, which would be the acid of cream and butter. That's where that would come through. We don't allow that conversion to happen. So that's what keeps this wine really bright and refreshing. At this point, very versatile pairing food-wise. I mean, I love it with seafood. I love it with soft cheeses and things like that. But this will be something that, even as it has a couple more months in bottle, it'll just integrate a little bit further and pick up a little bit more weight. And even, in a year from now, it'll still continue to drink really nicely. So if the warm weather is coming your way, this is a great wine for that too, because it's, again, got that freshness. And it's certainly something that leans a little bit more to the style of the old world. So love it, appreciate it. Great vineyard sources coming from up and down the Anderson Valley. Lots of Savoy vineyard fruit in here, which is an exceptional site. And so hope you guys are enjoying that. If you want to add any of that, if you're not a FEL member and you're interested in trying it, we can try to find you some. There was, only around 300 cases of this made, so very small production. So give it a try. It's delicious. If you like our wines, if you like our Sauvignon Blanc, this is a really nice alternative to that wine. But we're going to keep it moving because Travis is patiently waiting to talk about the Cliff Lady wines. So I'm going to keep going here with the next up is going to be our Savoy Vineyard Pinot Noir. And you'll notice this little line here that says Heritage Clones. This is a wine that only we make from the Savoy Vineyard. It is a selection of the clones, so the specific grapes, vines that grow in the Savoy Vineyard that have a tie back to California. These are clones that have been propagated through California for generations, and so they kind of truly are a California clone versus the clones that we would bring over from Europe. And we have some of those on the Savoy Vineyard as well, but this is what we call the heritage clones because it is all the California derived clonal material. So because of that, I feel like it really shows more of those California elements. There's a lot of really pretty fruit here. Certainly, black cherry is always kind of a dominant flavor profile, aromatic profile in Anderson Valley Pinot Noir, and just pretty. Like there's some really lifted, almost getting back to that element of like vibrant fruit character. I mentioned dark cherry, but there's like some floral characteristics here. I get that like classic black tea that you can pick up in Pinot Noir. And I think it speaks to the Savoy Vineyard. There's that little bit of like green, whether it's like pine or eucalyptus or just something really fresh. Across the street from the Savoy Vineyard is the Hendy Woods. And if you get an opportunity to ever go up through the Anderson Valley, take that quick detour, go hike through the Hendy Woods, all that, forest floor pine needles, crushed leaves and things like that. That's an element I always pick up in our Savoy Vineyard wines. So another similarity between this and the Chardonnay, that vibrancy, but I'm also picking up there's no new oak on these wines. So you're not tasting any oaky flavors at all. There's no vanilla or anything like that. It's just a very specific, pure expression of the fruit. So I can certainly appreciate that. These wines have a lot of almost like tension to them. They are held together by that vibrant energy that I keep referring to. And this will be something that, in time, give it, 3-6 months to a year, 2 years in the bottle, it'll just continue to develop more nuance and come together more seamlessly. This is the 2021 vintage, so it's the newest release, and it is still quite young. So something to just keep in mind. Food pairing here, I'm always a fan of grilled salmon with pretty much any Anderson Valley Pinot Noir. This is no exception to that. The fruitiness, again, that tension, that little bit of tannin and structure that this wine has is great. It just cuts through the fat of that fish. And I love that little bit of like smoky element you can get from barbecuing that can also pair with some of the spicy spice elements that you might find in this wine. So that's a good one. Could also maybe recommend if you're looking at meat, you could do something like a pork chop, just something kind of simple like that. Don't get too crazy on spices or anything. Really let the wine sing. That would be my other recommendation. But wow, that's a delicious wine, even just sipping on its own. So hopefully, if you have that in your cellar, you're going to give that a try sometime soon. And again, if you haven't had that, that is extremely small production. I don't have the number right in front of me. Let me see if I can pull it up. That production on that is 138 cases. So it's tiny. It's a tiny amount of it. Very rare wine. So if you're into Pinot Noir, give it a try. It's delicious. So that'll do it for our first two wines. And I promised you that Travis would come on to talk about Cliff Lede Vineyards. So he is joining me now live in what we call the White Room here above the winery. You can see all the beautiful tanks in below, so where all the Cliff Lede wines are made. And then the reflection off the glass here is of the hillside. So you can see the beautiful Poetry Vineyard kind of right in there in the reflection. So perfect place to bring on our Cliff Lede Vineyards winemaker, Travis Bullard. For those of you who haven't been on the program with Travis before, Travis, you've been with us for like a million years. You basically live on the property in more ways than one. And well, great to have you on the program.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Nice
welcome. How are you? How are things going here at the winery?
I'm doing really well. It's nice this time of year. It's always nice because I feel like we're playing catch up coming out of harvest. We have so many tanks to clean and everything to organize, the whole cave where we store all of our barrels. Everything needs some TLC and some attention and some love. So it feels good, like taking care of everything in the winery. So that's kind of what the crew's doing right now. The winemaking team, we've gone through and tasted the 22 vintage and the 23 vintage and kind of had some time to go through and work on some of those blends. blends on the 22s, and then just first pass tasting, see how everything's doing in barrel for the 23s. So exciting.
And how are you loving this, this rain, this weather? Is it reminding you of 2023, the start of last year a little bit, or how would you kind of
Yeah, we've had a
compare?
lot of rainy days, like not a ton of actual rain, but some pretty cloudy, stormy days. And so luckily the guys in the vineyard are moving pretty quick, so they're getting all their pruning done. They haven't had, when it is too rainy out there, that kind of puts them behind. But they've made really good progress pruning the estate and getting all the vines ready.
Making it look good. Yeah, it's love this time of year. It's green. For those of you who come to Napa Valley, if you haven't visited this time of year, yes, it can rain, but when it's not raining, you get these beautiful, blue skies and the hills are just gorgeous green. It is truly the best way to spend, well, maybe maybe on a beach on an island is the best way to spend winter, but for a guy from Edmonton, Canada, this is a nice way to spend winter. I can deal with a little bit of rain. Anyway, let's get to some wine. We got 2 wines from Lede Vineyards tonight that we're going to taste. Starting off with one of my absolute favorite wines that you guys make year to year. This is the 2021 High Fidelity red blend. So a blend of Cabernet Franc and Merlot. Travis, why don't you tell us a little bit more about how this blend came together this year? Because it can fluctuate, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And just tell us how you normally approach this wine when you're putting it together.
Yeah, so Hi-Fi is a right bank Bordeaux inspired wine. So predominantly Merlot. It has been that way in the past in earlier vintages. More recently, 17, 18, 19, and on, we've kind of pushed the Cabernet Franc percentage. So this 2021 is actually 65% Cabernet Franc and 27% Merlot, with a little bit of Cabernet Sauvignon. Some vintages we really don't have any Cabernet Sauvignon in it, but 2021 vintage is so soft and delicate and voluptuous that I think a little bit of Cab in there really helps the texture, helps the structure. Yeah, and so that was something we get away with in 2021. The Hi-Fi is always this really bright, kind of acidic driven wine. Really beautiful red fruits from the Merlot. We can get strawberries and cherries. But then the Cabernet Franc gives it this really beautiful aromatic lift. Lots of tea leaves and tobacco and smoked cardamom and spices like that. So
I get the smoked spices.
Yeah.
I'm definitely getting some of that tonight. The tobacco you mentioned, of course. I always find this wine to have impeccable balance. So it's got fresh acidity, but there's like a plushness to it. I'm a Cab guy first, overall, of course. And I love Cabernet for the power. I love it for the structure and the tannin. I feel like this has all of those elements, but it's just like a little more polished, right? It's a little easier to enjoy this in its youth, certainly. I popped this bottle 30 minutes ago, and as I'm just giving it some air in the glass and just moving it around, I can just see it just continually changing. Really, really spectacular year after year. I always have fun showing this wine to people when they visit because I'm always introducing it as Cabernet Franc or a low blend. And I don't think they think that it could really stand up to a Cabernet, or if they're a Cabernet drinker, they may be less interested in it. And I'm kind of like, no, if you like Napa Valley Cabernet, like you're going to love this wine. So
yeah, we have some really beautiful fruit sources for the Merlot and the Cabernet Franc. So most of the Merlot comes off of our Rhythm Vineyard on the estate here. As well as some of the Cab Franc. And then also we pull some of this Cabernet Franc from the Madrona Ranch, the Abram Madrona Ranch up in St. Helena. So really beautiful fruit. We're never quite sure where it's going to go, but then on the blending table, it kind of comes together. And we used a lot of that this year in the Hi-Fi. So
yeah, it is fun to sit in on those blending sessions and see how you guys, pull these wines together. And, I think that's a skill, a talent that well, it takes years and years and years to figure out how to do that. It's not easy, but I can tell you that even though the percentages change, there's a stylistic similarity between this and the prior vintages, right? It just continues to have that perfect place in between. Again, if you love Cabernet Sauvignon, like you're going to love this wine, but it just kind of offers a little bit more of a just a more rounded, even more air, maybe a little more aromatic too, than some of our Cabernets. So one of my favorites, High Fidelity, right? High Faithful, Highly Faithful, the name being inspired from music. We love music here. So great name. Tell us a little bit about the 2021 vintage. Um, I've been really impressed with the wines that you guys have put out. We've got some great scores from, all of the prominent critics so far. So, what kind of defined the 2021 vintage?
It was really dry winter. So early shoot growth, just not a lot of water. So that was kind of something that out of the gates, like we knew we were going to have to manage. There's always the question of, are you trying to push growth, and then are we going to have enough water to carry the vines through? So, we can irrigate here, and we do, but we need to be meticulous on how we do that, because we don't, on a really dry year like 2021, we don't know if we're going to have enough water to carry us through the whole growing season.
Right.
So the vineyard team here did a really good job of managing canopies. So we're able to get really beautiful ripeness in the fruit, but then also like carry that through the whole growing season. So that was kind of the mark of 2021. It was cooler as far as the weather went, which like really helped us out. So we didn't have any of those really big heat events that Napa can see, especially around like later in harvest, around Labor Day. So I think the warmest weekend was actually in June. For the 2021 season. So it ended up being a really, really beautiful growing season. I think when you taste these wines, you can see on a cooler year, like you have a lot of natural acidity that drives some of these wines. And so it gives it a little tension. And I think you kind of see that across the board of all the 2021s from Cliff Lede Vineyards.
Yeah, there's certainly the concentrated core fruit that we always expect, but there's a lift to these wines. An elegance maybe is a way to put it, that is sometimes elusive, right? In those warm years, it's hard to capture that.
Right.
But you guys did a really wonderful job of containing all of that in this vintage. So proud of 2021, great vintage. Of course, we'll have more 2021 releases coming with the Rock Block in April, and then of course Poetry in the fall. But before we get there, we've got one more wine that we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to take a little bit more time to talk about this one because it's a very special wine to me, to Travis, to everybody here. It's a brand new project that we have never ever made. This is 2021, again, great vintage, and we're calling this wine Rhythm. Look at that label, beautiful. Beautiful. First time we've done a black label, 2021 Rhythm. This bottle, it's actually in the same bottle that Poetry comes in. So it has that beautiful, elegant package that Poetry has. And look at that color. Wow. So we'll give you guys a little bit of background on this wine and kind of where it stems from. And this is a project that we initiated a couple years ago in the goal to make better wine from our estate properties. We have this beautiful, just under 60 acres planted vineyard here in the Stag's Leap district, and everybody knows Poetry. They recognize it's this gorgeous hillside vineyard, and the wine that comes from Poetry is exceptional. You guys, congratulations, of course, kudos to you. You've been getting these great scores and really building this icon that is within the Cliff Lede wine portfolio. And I sort of noticed as I've been around that while we have that wonderful vineyard, we also have this exceptional. So Poetry is about 16 acres planted, and then down here, the Rhythm Vineyard, as we're calling it, that surrounds the winery and the tasting room, is 37 acres. So it's another, it's a larger size, but it's another exceptional vineyard here in Napa Valley. And there was really no reason why we weren't making a vineyard specific wine from this site. It typically was, contributed to things like High Fidelity, which it still does, as we just pointed out, Crossfade, and our Cabernets, all of our Cabernets, little bits and pieces would come from this vineyard, but we never made a wine that was just kind of the same way we approach poetry, the best wine from this vineyard. And so I'll do a quick screen share just so, if everybody hasn't seen the, let's see here, the vineyard map in a while, we'll kind of break that down. And sorry, I'm on the tech sheet there. But here's the vineyard map. And we've recently updated this if you haven't seen. Of course, we still have the rock blocks and all the fun names. That hasn't gone anywhere. But we've kind of made some efforts to clearly define the two vineyards. So you see poetry here is everything on the hillside, as I was talking about before. And the Rhythm Vineyard sits down here. I should say Travis and I are sitting here where this number 1 is indicated in the winery. The tasting room here is the number 2. So if you've been to our property before, that's where you would have tasted. And so you can see Rhythm kind of snakes around these hills and spreads throughout quite a substantial section of our property. You'll also notice that the color of these blocks change from one end to another. We have more of our Merlot and some of our Bordeaux blending varietals here on the west side, and then Cabernet kind of throughout the mid part of the valley. These two hills that border us to the south, they really impact the soils that we have throughout this vineyard. And so I'll let Travis speak a little bit more to that because he's the expert, but I just wanted to show this map so that we could really reiterate that, what we're going for here is poetry being the hillside and Rhythm being these subtle slopes that sit below the winery. So with that, Travis, tell us about what makes this vineyard distinct from, say, from poetry. What kind of separates it?
Yeah, so poetry is all the hillside. So everything sloping up basically from the east side of Silverado Trail. And those soils are very shallow. They're very, very, very shallow soils on like fractured shale. So those vines are naturally low yielding, very concentrated fruit, very tiny berries, and they struggle to grow and to produce. So you really don't get a lot of fruit off of those.
Right.
That gives the wine this very like beautiful tight core. It's very crushed rock.
It's like very terroir driven.
Yeah, and that wine, like we always say, like out of the gate, it's very like tight woven, like kind of like a rosebud. And so it takes a really long time to evolve that wine. It's very beautiful and it's layered, but it takes time to age that wine and showcase some of those flavors.
It's set up for a long life cycle.
Exactly, and that's something that we love about poetry. But the Rhythm Vineyard here is. It still has like a really gentle grade. There is a slope from the east to west on this vineyard, but the soils are a little richer, a little deeper. The east side of the Rhythm Vineyard, where if you looked on that map, you saw like most of the Cabernets planted. Yeah. So that's very gravelly, really crushed rock. A little thinner soil, so that's why we have Cabernet planted on that side. That Cabernet Sauvignon does a lot better in that soil type. So we can grow some really beautiful Cab. And then as you go west on the property, you get closer to the Napa River. So those soils are a little deeper, a little richer, maybe a little more clay content. And so that's why we have most of the Merlot planted on that side, as well as some of the Malbec and Petit Verdot.
Sure.
So they do really well in some of those heavier soils. So it's really diverse property. And like you said, like we've been growing these really beautiful grapes from this estate vineyard, Rhythm Vineyard, but most of that fruit went into our Stag's Leap District Cab. And so, and in doing that, that was a larger bottling. So we had some grower partners that we were getting fruit from that went into that SLD Cab. So it didn't exactly showcase what we had here on this vineyard. And so, like you said, for this wine, this Rhythm wine, we really want to take some of the best components off of this Rhythm Vineyard and build this like a truly distinctive Cab. Yeah. So I think maybe it's a little, with poetry being like kind of its own creature, even in the Stag's Leap district. You know, it's such a unique site. It's such a unique aspect of that hillside, that it kind of, I think, stands alone when you put it against some of the other Stag's Leap district wine.
Sure.
Where this Rhythm Vineyard maybe is a little, it showcases maybe more of the natural Stag's Leap district character. So you've got really beautiful, like red and black fruit. You've got really voluptuous, silky tannins. Out of the gate, it's maybe a little more approachable.
Yeah, not as tightly wound as poetry. I mean,
Exactly.
you know, we just, again, pulled the cork 30 or so minutes ago. And you know, as it spins around the glass, it's actually coming out more and more and more. That isn't to say that this wine isn't built for a long haul. I mean, when we say we're building a wine off a 37-acre vineyard, sounds like a big vineyard, but this is like 1,300 and change cases. I mean, this is a really small production, because I mean, ultimately, you guys just wanted to make the best of the best that you could from this site.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, we are just picking the best lots. There's also is a component of, you know, same with the poetry, where, you know, when we build that wine, we're picking some of the best lots from the poetry vineyard. So there is a chance that like some of maybe the lower, not lower elevation lots, or in a year where it doesn't match up with the poetry wine, or just doesn't kind of fit in, like those can get declassified and kind of work into this rhythm wine too. So you know, depending on the year, it can catch a little bit of that poetry fruit too.
Sure. Yeah. A little Petit Verdot from poetry can amplify some of these qualities. That's great. Well, I mean, this is exceptional. You know, if anyone has this open at home, you know what I'm talking about, but you definitely want to try this at some point soon. I'm really happy with the support that we've received over the last couple of weeks that we've released this. People have been excited to try this wine, and the reception's really been awesome so far. You know, this is a wine that means a lot to me. This vineyard, I don't know how many years it's been where I've walked these rows and spent a lot of time just in this vineyard. And so I'm proud that it finally has its own distinct identity. And you know, Rhythm is a great name. I think it really fits in with what you guys do and in dealing with the cycle of nature throughout the season. There's a rhythm to that. There's a rhythm to winemaking and what you're doing in the cellar. And so what a great way to, you know, pay tribute to that with the name. Plus it works with poetry, right? It's kind of another musical reference. So hopefully everybody is digging that and excited to try it. We will be releasing this wine to, of course, our members first, and it is available right now online. So if you are interested in grabbing it, we do offer 10% off 6 bottles. So that's a nice little carrot if you're interested in seeing what Rhythm's all about. And we will sell a little bit of this wine in the marketplace. So you might see this in some great restaurants or in your high-end boutique shops. So we're excited to get it out there and see where it can go. And again, I just appreciate everybody's support on this, as it's a very, you know, personal project that that I'm grateful to have been involved in during my time here so far. So Rhythm Cabernet, that's amazing. I mean, gosh, what does it have? 96 points here, 97 points there. I mean, it's kind of, you know, just striking all those great scores from the critics, and 125 retail. I mean, you know, this is a wine that, again, I think with a lot of our wines, we're always trying to over deliver for the price. You know, high fidelity at, I think it's $100. I mean, good luck finding something that can compete with that. Much like even poetry, you know, I put poetry up against all the big boys. We do that often with our tastings, and just to see where it lands, and it always tends to do very well. So try it, check it out. Rhythm, love it. Dan, thank you so much for you're saying it's got a great nose, soft tannins. I totally agree. One thing I have to give these guys props for too is just how they've really focused and elevated the craft, and just the wines are so seamless. They've always been spectacular, but if I can tell that you guys are really focusing, just getting all the acidity, the tannin, the fruit, like just everything aligned, right? That equilibrium that you look for. And this is you know, a really wonderful example of that. Wow. So that's going to conclude the wine introductions that we have in the shipments, of course. If there's any questions, I'm going to just move this down so I don't knock it over. And open up see if there's any Q&A or if there's anything in the chat. I don't currently see anything. There is a question here from Dan about when we might be in the New York area. That trip is still coming together. We're working on some events in New York City. There is a great, what is it called? I think it's called New York Vintners. It's a cool wine space. I guess they do all kinds of events and things, and we're working on doing something fun with music. So I might bring some of the turntables out and do some fun wine and music pairing. But we'll have more details on that when that event is coming together. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to all the events we're doing here. Again, the Rock Block Party, if you're looking for something really fun to do in the springtime, in May, definitely look at that. We often get a band, or we are getting a band to come and play. We shut down the tasting room and we sit outside. We drink Rock Block wines, and we'll probably have some rhythm there too. Unless it sells out, we'll see. You know, that might be kind of cool. We could celebrate that, but we'll likely have some rhythm there. And it's just a really fun day. Great food and great camaraderie. So think about that. It is available if you go to cliffladevineyards.com/visit or find us on Tock, TOCK. You can book all of these things. All of the tickets are available now, and you can check it out. Question here from Carol: are the rock blocks being renamed? Is there an archive of the older vineyard maps showing the original names? That's a cool question. The rock blocks are not being renamed. There are often times where blocks can get shifted, or if blocks get replanted, sometimes new blocks, new names and new blocks get added. And I will say that sometimes my dad gets this itch that he feels he needs to scratch, and he might look at the map and be like, you know, I really liked that song by that artist, but I like this song better. Or, you know, he'll find a way to tweak things from time to time. So I don't believe that there's an archive of older maps. I mean, he might be able to find some of them online, but for the most part, like the blocks like Dark Side of the Moon and Bohemian Rhapsody and, you know, Whole Lot of Love, like these have always kind of been where they are. And we don't try to change them unless unless there's some replanting, and then things kind of have to shift around, or we add things. But yeah, I hope that answers your question. It is fun, and you know, we are always talking about how can we kind of expand it and bring more artists in, more you know, more eras even, you know, and when we can sort of start to include people that made great music in the 90s or even the 2000s. But that's more of a conversation between my dad and I. You know, we're always going back and forth on that. But you know, it's truly the fun, unique thing about us, and we love telling that story. And I'm really excited for you all to try Diamond Sky, which is the 2021 vintage of that wine, which will be coming out in April. So we'll have that featured in our next webinar. Nice. So we'll send the date out about that. But if there aren't any other questions, then I will let Travis get back home to his baby boy. Travis became father, what is it, 4 times now? Right. Got to get back to his 3 months, 2 months, 2.5,
2.5,
2.5 months. See, he's still counting months. That's when you know they're young. You still know all the months. I'm not getting, what do I got, a 48-month-old or whatever? Like, I don't, you know, it's funny. But thank you all for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You know, we appreciate your support. You know, it means the world to us that we have such dedicated members that support us and you know, enable us to do these cool things like this. And you know, we're really hoping that you enjoy all the wines that are out. Of course, if you're looking for other things, check us out online. We always have fun little library selections available, and various other great wines. If you like the Marla Blanc, if you haven't had it, I think there's like 2 cases left. So check it out. Let us know if you need it, because after that, we won't have any until the 2023, which comes in August. So it's going to be a while. All right, that's going to be it for us, though. Thanks so much. Thanks, Travis.
Yeah,
cheers.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you. Keep making great wine, buddy.
Thank you.